Hello everyone, welcome to a new series on this channel. I'm giving you power rankings for Super League after round 1. They're a little bit difficult to do sometimes, especially after just one round. I'll try to put as much context into these games as possible, try and kind of reference last season's performances, the squads they've currently got, expectations, those kind of things. They are difficult to do, but the point of these is to essentially establish the informed teams, and as the weeks go by, we'll see the most informed teams. This may always look similar to the league table. Things might not change throughout the season, but I'll always try and give as much context as possible, because with the amount of cards that we've got going on, some things might not be exactly as they seem results-wise. So you've got to take into account the performances when it's 13 on 13, for example. So, without further ado, let's get started on this week's power rankings. Also, quick side note, if you like hoodies, like this for example, if you check the KL store link in the description, you can get some, okay? Also help me out a lot, thanks. Starting off with 12th place in the power rankings, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, it's going to be the London Broncos. Now, we'll say, they did pick up a try in a, off-the-cuff moment. It was a well-worked try. It was good to watch. I did back them to get one in my predictions video, and they got one. So I'm proud of them for that. And I think the gap was, based on my prediction, was honestly smaller than I expected it to be. And against the kind of squad that St. Helens has, results-wise, I know what the result looks like, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, to be fair. So it kind of leads me to think that there's a win in there somewhere. But as I said in the comments of the last video, someone mentioned about London Broncos picking up wins. And I said, for their fan base, I'd like to see them pick up wins at home so they can experience that before, all this grading criteria kind of kicks them to the dirt. But if teams are resting players around, Challenge Cup matches or big Challenge Cup matches, there could be a win in there somewhere. But yeah, London Broncos in 12th. Taking the 12th spot in my power rankings is going to be the Castleford Tigers. Now, given their game context, number one, they're playing the current champions. With the squad that Castleford's got compared to the squad that Wigan's got, look, no one expected a miracle, including Tigers fans. They hoped for one, sure, every club does, and that's completely fine. But in terms of the changes that were made for both teams, for transfers in and out, it just wasn't going to be a good night for Castleford. It just wasn't. However, I don't think Castleford are going to struggle quite as badly as they did last season. I do like the people that they brought in. I think they went for more... I think they went for more substance. In the players that they brought in, they kind of just went for names previously with Blake Austin and Widdop, and they weren't really anywhere close to their prime. They were in a decline, basically. But I think the people that they've brought in are just good, solid enough players that can help them pick up wins. I don't think they're going to do much. There's only one team that I think I'd feel confident about them beating, which is the London Broncos. Hence why they are just one place above them. So there's not too much else to say other than we weren't expecting much against Wigan. The squad doesn't look very strong, but they'll pick up wins. I don't think they'll finish last, even though it's been 1 week. But 11th place, Castleford Tigers. Moving on to 10th place now, and I'm going to place Hull FC in that position. The first thing I want to get onto, refereeing decisions. There's one in particular that I'm quite baffled by, not from the referee side, from the fans side. Now, we're going to have disagreements all season long about the criteria for certain sin bins, penalties only, or red cards. We're going to go back and forth on this. All we know that we want, that we say uniformly across all fans, is consistency. So maybe we don't like the rules in certain cases, but as long as it's consistent, we will take that all day long. Everyone's getting a fair shout. But this incident with Sal, I think it was, on Matt Parcell and the knee to the face, let's make one thing clear. The first time it happened, purely accidental in the heat of the moment. There was no malicious intent. It just happened because he was just flopping all over the place trying to get up from the tackle. Purely an accident, not even close to a sin bin. You could try to argue it, it's not. Now, Matt Parcell put his hands all over his face, and then Sal looks him dead in the eyes and then cops him in the face with a knee, swinging up a second time. And there are some people out there that want to say, it's not a sending off. What? How is that not a sending off? There is a clear angle of him looking him dead in the eyes and lifting his knee up again. What more do you want? Other than that, the performance from Hull FC was as to be expected. Little fight going forwards, pretty weak in defence. Outplayed all over the park. I thought they'd put up some fight because they normally do in the Hull derby. You know, conditions weren't great, but Hull Kingston Rovers dealt with them better. The spine that they have to play with at the moment consisted of, well, at any given time could have up to 3 hookers in it, which would include Danny Houghton, Farmanu Brown and Morgan Smith. Which for me, all of those guys are hookers. Houghton definitely. Farmanu Brown has probably had some experience in the number 7 role in Australia. I haven't seen a lot of it. I've usually seen him at 9. And then Morgan Smith, for the most part, I'm pretty sure has been a number 9. And probably played in the 7 role for Wakefield from time to time. But they've got 3 hookers there. You lost Clifford. And that's a huge miss. I see them maybe beating Castleford. Just because of the players they've got maybe in the forward pack. I think will be quite strong. As long as they don't all get suspensions for 7 weeks. So they need to watch out for that. But Hull could beat Castleford in London. But right now, it ain't looking good. Taking the number 9 spot in my power rankings is going to be the Warrington Wolves. And it pains me to do this as they are my team. But I watched them play. And I watched them fail miserably. And I knew the moment that that red card was given out, we were going to struggle. Because every single time we are a man up, we are worse. We are the only team I know to do that. The only other time I think I've seen that happen, I think Leeds maybe did it last year. They played worse after they went a man up, or it might have been Wigan. But somehow, we get worse every time we're a man up. The Catalans were so much quicker through the middle, we couldn't defend on the outsides. There was no creativity in attack. Tried to go at them early in the first half, before Davies nearly tipped the ball for an interception. And after that, we just barely went at them. And we left it till basically the last few seconds when the hooter went to actually have a go. Now, there was, of course, the try through the middle in the second half for Matt Duffy, where we had a go in the last tackle. But it's like, it's few and far between. I understand taking your time when there's a red card, because the player ain't coming back on. Take your time to kind of build the pressure. But it wasn't working. It just wasn't working. There was no attempt to go at them. And silly mistakes. I will say defensively, Warrington seemed pretty solid. They don't look too shaky. Lindup was a bit of a liability on that right-hand side. But yes, he's 17, but doesn't excuse the fact that performance-wise was a liability. But there's still room to grow as he's only 17. So, in context. But defensively, Warrington look okay. Fitness-wise, look pretty solid. Forwards, I think, could do a good job through the middle. But in terms of creativity and control, the kicking game, again, is abysmal. And the organisation on the last tackle is non-existent. Drinkwater, if you're going to offer nothing with the ball, the least you can do is know what you want to do on the last tackle. Just a word of advice for someone that's never played the game, but can clearly see you're not doing it right. So Warrington Wolves take the number 9 spot. In at number 8, I'm going to place the Leigh Leopards. I think their performance was a little bit sluggish. They did have, a few disadvantages with having a man sent off twice, or sin bin twice. And the fact that they pretty much stayed in the game is a good indication that they're going to be all right. They're going to be fine. But given the spine that they went into this game with, for me, to lose like that against Huddersfield or not really compete for long enough in those moments where it's 13 on 13 with the team that they had on paper compared to Huddersfield. For me, just, it's not alarming by any means. It's just a little bit underwhelming. But I don't think there's anything to worry about. There's no panic from me. There shouldn't be any from Leigh fans either. It will take some time for Matt Moylan maybe to just get, not necessarily used to the pace of the game, but just a different style than he's used to. I kind of expected him to just be crazy in his first game, but it just wasn't like that. But nothing to worry about for Leigh. I'm sure they'll bounce back in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I think 8th. I think 8th is fair. Just missing out on the top half of these power rankings is going to be the Huddersfield Giants. I think it may be easier to explain this positioning a little bit more with the next team in context. It will make sense when I get there. But Huddersfield Giants, I think, performance-wise, was fine. It was also better than I expected. I didn't think they'd be offering too much with the team that they had. I knew that Clune would be a solid addition. And he could be one of those, special players, kind of, fringe players in the NRL that come over and show that, oh, this is the, the golfing quality between the leagues. But Huddersfield definitely surpassed my expectations just by the fact that they won this game and seemed, sin bins aside, comfortable enough. And also, created some good opportunities. So I think middle of the pack, just missing out on the top 6, especially with the teams that are in the top 6, I think is about a fair assessment. There's not too much else to say on this team. I think they can cause some upsets with the players that they've got. I think as long as they're consistent, this is what Huddersfield need. If they can beat the teams that they should be beating, which is most of the teams I've already mentioned on this list so far, maybe bar 1 or 2 that might have a good day compared to a Giants off day, for example, and can get a couple of upset wins in there, they could really be pushing for top 6. I don't think it's such a stretch to say that, given the personnel that they've got. But I think right now, just based off week 1, I think 7th is fair for the Giants. Taking the number 6 spot, who I think could have really taken the number 5, and I don't think too many people would have argued with it, but taking the number 6 spot, I've put the Salford Red Devils. In context, good effort. Really good effort. Given the players that they lost, and I'm not going to harp on too much about these guys, for the first couple of weeks. I'm going to try not to. But losing Andy Ackers, who's a really, really strong player in that spine, going to the team that they just played, is going to be tough. Losing Brodie Croft, who is easily a top 5 standoff in Super League. They lose him, goes to the team that they just played against. Some people might have him in their top 3, maybe, depends who you ask. But just to play it safe, Brodie Croft is top 5 minimum for me. So to lose those 2 guys, then to have to play against them, yes, they probably understand what they're like and their style and all that, so it's maybe easier to coach against, that kind of thing. But, coaching against it's one thing, but then having to execute it is a whole other thing. Given the changes, I think the performance from Salford, and given the fact that they were a man down, still put up points whilst being a man down, they look all right. They look all right. And like Huddersfield, as long as they beat the teams that they should be beating, that'll put them in, good position to challenge for a playoff spot. And if they cause some upsets, which I actually think this team could really do quite a few times against some of these teams I'm about to put in the top 5, they could really be pushing for a playoff spot here, and a firm playoff spot, not having to compete at the end of the season. And again, this is all based off 1 week. That's what power rankings are, and they will change week to week, and I'll be saying, in a couple of weeks' time, Salford, they're in such awful form, they're worse than London Broncos. It could happen, but again, this is just going off what I saw, or everything that I could piece together from week 1. And for me, what I saw was a Salford Red Devils team that is not too bad. It's not too bad. So the Salford Red Devils just miss out on 5. But I think 6 is fair enough. In at number 5 is going to be the Leeds Rhinos. As I mentioned about Salford missing out on number 5, I really could have swapped these teams around. I didn't see the entire game, so I'd have to kind of watch it back and go, play for play, what were they like when it was 13-on-13, and get a bit more context to really see, okay, well, were Leeds more dominant through the middle? Did they look like they put Salford under more pressure? And maybe Leeds and Salford fans could actually let me know in the comments what your opinion was on that game, because without seeing everything from that game, I can't always piece every little bit of context and nuance throughout the game. So if there's anyone that could, and even if every other game, if you can sort of enlighten me about things that I may have missed or not considered in these, I'm always happy to learn. But Leeds, at the end of the day, they got the win. They put up an okay number of points. Hit the 20 marker and above. But 5 is a weird one, because on another day, I think Salford could absolutely get that job done. And Leeds aren't the finished article by any means. They will have their off moments. They are going to lose to teams that they shouldn't be losing to. I think there's a chance that Warrington might have them at some point. Leigh would probably get them. Huddersfield would probably get them. Just in one of those games. Probably not twice. Again, based off 1 week. But Leeds, again, with a brand new spine. With Miller, Croft, Frawley and Ackers. It's a brand new spine. And they've got a few other players in the back line as well. So, a solid enough start from Leeds. Nothing to go too wild about so far. But as I said, at the end of the day, they got the job done. So that's why I've put them ahead of Salford. But for me, there's a big gap to number 4. So, Leeds at 5. Taking the number 4 spot, I'm going to go with the Catalans Dragons. They put up a hell of a fight against Warrington. A hell of a fight. It was only 6-4 in the first half. Both teams seem pretty solid defensively. Now, the only reason why I've not put Catalans 3rd, I kind of wanted to put them 3rd until I remembered my point about what I said about Warrington, in that Warrington didn't really go at Catalans. Because I was thinking the one thing that might differentiate Catalans and the team I've put in 3rd is maybe looking at the defence. And based on the teams that these two teams were both playing against. The fact that Warrington didn't actually go at Catalans is the only reason why I've not put Catalans higher for their defence. Because they weren't really challenged. Which again, as a Wire fan, is so sad to have to say. Given the fact that Catalans were a man down. It's sad. It's truly pathetic. But that's the only reason Catalans don't take 3rd, is that they weren't challenged in defence, so I can't really make that case. But in attack, they seemed okay, made good meters through the middle, were pacey at times with the ball, but weren't always very clinical. Sometimes the last tackle was a little bit off, but they still look like a really strong team, and defensively they're normally strong year on year. And the few changes that they've made don't seem to have been that much of an effect for them. So I think number 4 is a pretty reasonable position for the Catalans Dragons. Taking the number 3 spot is going to be the Hull Kingston Rovers. Now, I could talk again about them not being challenged in defence. But to hold a team to 0, even though you're playing against 12 men. No penalties. They're not taking 2. No free tries with a missed conversion or tries with a conversion. 0 points. Simple as that. It's strong enough in defence. Even if you're playing against 11, to not concede any points is always a real big tick in that box. So, I would say Hull Kingston Rovers in attack as well. Had a lot of control. In poor weather conditions, looked pretty clean for the most part. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty damn good. And I feel that if they come up against Catalans Dragons, I think they'd maybe just edge it. Hence why I've put them ahead. I think in attack, they'd be a little bit more clinical. In defence, I think they'd be pretty similar in defence overall between those two teams. So I think Hull Kingston Rovers would be the much better team against all other teams I've mentioned so far. Hence why they're in the number 3 spot, including the Dragons. And Mikey Lewis is pretty exciting. And if he's not careful, he's going to be bumping George Williams out of that number 6 spot for England. And if he continues on the trajectory he's been on from last season to the Tonga series to round 1 this season, Williams is gone. And I know people say, well, it's Sean Wayne at the end of the day, so let's just hang fire. But Mikey Lewis is looking good. And even with missing Jordan Abdul, having to make that change is a big miss. But they dealt with it well. And Hull KR looked pretty good. So they're at number 3. The team that is going to take the number 2 spot for me in my power rankings is going to be St. Helens. Now, there are 3 mitigating factors, and I know some people might get PTSD from that because all the refs have talked about mitigating factors all weekend with these high challenges. But St. Helens go second for 3 reasons. Number 1, they played a weaker team than the team that's obviously going to go number 1. Number 2, they conceded a try, which I know sounds weird to just say out loud, but I don't think, given their team compared to London Broncos, they should have conceded. I know it's like not the end of the world. They conceded a try that was off, some really brilliant stuff from London. So give them credit for that. But I actually don't think, as much as I backed London to score, I didn't really think they were going to score, honestly. So it's like the most marginal negative point to Saints in this case. Only because London, my expectations were so much lower, I didn't think they'd actually score. Like, if it's a penalty, fine, completely fine. But the fact that it's a try, and it was, the way it was a bit too chaotic, a bit unorganised in that moment. So, fair play to London, but that's one. And the third one, I don't think they scored as many points as I think they should have done. Again, because I predicted 54-6. The 6 points was just kind of a bit of a courtesy. Because I was like, oh, come on, London. You can do it. I believe in you. But Saints, I think, should have put up more points. They put up a good number of points, don't get me wrong. But I actually think it should have been more. And they're the only reasons. So people could still put them number 1 in their power rankings, and that wouldn't bother me, would make complete sense. But it's just those 3 reasons for me, personally, just make me want to put them below the team that's in number 1. And any guesses who that might be? Good luck with that. So to no one's surprise, the number 1 spot in my power rankings is going to go to the Wigan Warriors. Mainly because I feel if Wigan and Saints were to play today, I think Wigan would edge it, basically. I think they'd be fine against Hull. I think they'd be fine against Catalans. And then it'd get a lot easier from Leeds onwards. With, I think, maybe Salford putting a good challenge in there. Probably not doing anything too crazy, but Wigan look like the strongest team at the moment. Given that they also played against a slightly stronger team, the gulf between Castleford and London is still somewhat of a gap. As much as people might want to joke about how poor Castleford are going to be this season, it's still a pretty sizable gap. So that's one thing that makes me lean towards them. And given the players that they have in their team, it's just, wow, that spine. Field, French, Smith, and actually I can't even think who played number 9. I truly apologise, but just those 3 alone, they'll be alright. And out wide, the replacements they made, the replacements in the forward pack, Wigan can just switch it on at any time. It is scary how quickly they could just go from 0 to 100. because they had their moments last season where they were just, they weren't quite on it. They were making attempts to go at teams, but just execution wasn't quite there. And that happened early on last season from what I recall. But who's really going to stop him? I can't see him losing that many games. They'll have close games against Saints and Catalans and Hull KR. There'll be some tough matches in there. And they may even lose to a team that they shouldn't lose to here or there. Because, it happens to everyone. But Wigan, right now, based on the squad, based on how they were in week 1 compared to everyone else, just look like the strongest team to me. And I wouldn't put it past them to beat the Panthers next week. I'll have to give that a good think before my predictions video. But I think they could certainly put up a real good fight. So, in the number 1 spot is the Wigan Warriors. So that's going to be it for this video. If you have anything that you need to add to give me a bit more context, a bit more nuanced context to any of these games, because I've not been able to see every single game in full, do let me know, because that helps kind of inform the way I look at teams, the way I think about these power rankings going forwards, and it helps inform the predictions and potential bets that I put forward as well. So, and I'm always happy to learn about other teams as well, because I am a Wire fan. It's easier for me to extend Warrington Wolves sections in a video, but I'm more than happy to listen about other teams, and that's, I'm going to learn and hopefully teach new people that come along about those teams, and you guys can obviously help them out in the comments if they've got any questions. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thanks very much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.